Okay, hello everybody. I believe we're live streaming. We'll have somebody check on that, but it tells me we are live streaming to YouTube at this moment. It's good to see everybody. Listen, we didn't have last week. Last week my back was behind me and I couldn't catch up with it. So it's good to be back this week. It's good to be feeling better. And I want to welcome everybody who's listening to Power of Faith Radio tonight. And if you want to, you can go on over to our Facebook page, which is A Simple Walk. Then you'll see all the links to how to join in, including the link to the YouTube channel. While you're there to that YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe, hit that notification bell. You'll be notified every time a new video goes up. And or you can also come into the Zoom room. The Zoom link is there on A Simple Walk Facebook page. Hello, Terry. How you doing?
Hello, Scotty. I see you're up right now.
Yeah. So you want to greet everybody in the Zoom room and possibly tell everybody how they can email us.
All righty. Greetings, everyone.
I want to tell you this. I got some emails, but there wasn't anything I wanted to read on. Yeah. So you go ahead. Go ahead, Terry.
Right. Well, greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. We're sorry we missed everyone last week, but it was important that Scotty get his rest. He injured his back, and we're glad to hear he's doing better and he's upright and needs to stay out of trouble.
Yeah, right.
I kid, everyone that has been listening to us a while. I kid everyone. He does work 9 days a week, and I think it's catching up with him.
Yeah.
So but greetings, everyone. Here in our Zoom room tonight is Ronald and Veronica, Amuela and Thomas and Bob. Of course, Scotty down in the engine room running and everything. And like Scotty said, going over to the Simple Walk. You can click the Zoom and the YouTube links and you can come in and join us in Zoom with us. You don't have to have your camera on. You're welcome to come in and join us at any time or come on over to the Zoom room. Also, the Zoom room has an open chat on there for those who want to get in there on that. You can also send questions through the chat, anytime we're shooting live. And you're welcome to do that. Or, as Scotty said, if you have any questions, love mail, hate mail, prefer the love mail, love, peace, and joy, right? Go back to the 60s there a little bit. But, you can contact us at outreachnoah@gmail.com. And you can also contact us through our Facebook group, Simple Walk, or Scotty and I both are public on Facebook. You can message us as well. That way, if you need to contact us personally with a question or want to discuss something, you can message us that way. So we are reachable. We're not just where you can't send us a question or anything like that. That's one thing we do like the questions because we don't mind answering them. Well, Scotty, are you about ready?
I am ready. So I'm going to tell a little story before I get started on this. And I'm not going to give the Hebrew terms. I hear Rabbi Wawa Jacobson talk about these terms all the time. But I ran into a gentleman today, and I was just tickled to death that I ran into him. It made me feel warm and fuzzy inside. So I'm going to say about 8 years ago, I friended a gentleman who lived on the streets. And he told me I could tell his story, but I can't tell his name because he didn't want where he's working at. Anyway, you know that. So I tried to help him, tried to get him off the street, and it just took so much during that time. It just seemed like a dead end road, and I thought, well, I need to find him a job. So I called a place that I used to work at, and I said, look, I got this guy, and he is very familiar with the layout of this city, everything about it. I didn't tell him how he was familiar with it, but I said he's very familiar with the layout of this city, everything about it. He's looking for a job, and I want to ask you if you'll hire him. And the guy said, well, do you recommend him? And of course, I said, yeah, I recommend him. So they hired him. I ran into him today, and he told so what the job they needed someone for is to help in the routing of their company, dis, dis, distributing or receiving things off the streets. And so he started in there then. I'm going to say it's been 9 years ago. And this year they put him head of shipping and receiving. And I thought, that is great. I didn't even recognize him. He looked completely different. And so I'm just telling you, don't give up on anybody. Find a way. Help. I just want to throw that in. I just thought made me feel warm and fuzzy all inside, Terry, when I saw him, and it's great. I'm not going to lie to you. My first instinct was, I wonder if he's still working there, but he's working there. He worked his way up, and he's head of shipping and receiving. I thought, man, I should have took that job.
Yeah, praise God.
So, all right, I'm going to get started in our Tzedakah time. We appreciate everybody who has participated in our Tzedakah time, and I'm having trouble with my paper clip here. It won't come off. We appreciate everybody who has participated, and so we are going to start off as always with our main Terry and I's teacher, and that's Pesach and Shira Sherbo in Sfat, Israel. And then also on our Tzedakah list tonight is Harleen Hool. Harleen Hool. I talked to Harleen this week, and she had a stroke, but she's doing somewhat better. And then Pamela Steffi. Have you talked to Pamela anymore, Veronica? Have you talked to her since you left? And she's wanting to keep you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we text every so often, and she still has an issue that, I don't know, I think she just needs another doctor, but she's she's feeling okay.
Okay, great. Also, Jeremy Kibbe, we've got him still on our Tzedakah list this week. And Nadine Akins, we have Nadine on our Tzedakah list this week. Ronald and Ronald's sister. You know why I put Ronald, just say Ronald's sister, because I don't want to mess up the name. I mess up enough names. So, Ronald, how are you doing? And then tell us about your sister.
Oh, yeah, I'm doing pretty good at the moment still, so that's good. My sister, still very much up and down, but it looks like she'll be getting the biopsy done shortly to see
Okay.
what's going on with that presumed cancer. Yeah.
Okay. We're going to keep her on our Tzedakah list. Also, William and Tina Lyons is on our Tzedakah list. Wendell and Mary Parsons, we have them on our Tzedakah list tonight. Also, we still have Christina Hall on our Tzedakah list tonight, and Jessica Brandon. Did I say that name right? Janice. So you got to help me, Ronald. You got to help me. Janice Brandon. And then also Larry Beck and family we have on our Tzedakah list tonight. Also, we have Terry Hayes and family on our Tzedakah list tonight. And we also, somebody always mentions Amuela Asher and Veronica Port and Thomas Schaus. They include all of you together. So you must be the trio, the three musketeers, so they always include you three together. And then also we have Chrissy Seaton. We just feel like keeping her on there. How's Chrissy doing, Ronald? Have you got to talk to her lately?
Yes, I do. Yes, she's doing quite well. Yeah. She's got a bit of help around the house. Her grandson's moved back in with her at the moment. Ty, the one who has the rodeo accident.
Yes.
How's he doing?
Yeah.
How's Ty doing?
He's doing very well. Yeah, he's come full recovery. No mental issues, like cognitive issues or anything. So he's doing great. He's doing a bit of mustering work at the moment. So he's off and away now and then, working central Queensland mustering cattle. So he's doing quite well, but he's moved in with his grandma, so she's cooking and that for him and helping him out, and he's helping her out. So I think they're going really well.
Great. Also on our Tzedakah list is Warwick Marshall. is on our Sadaka list, and John Carter is on our Sadaka. How's Warwick doing? Have you talked to? Have you talked to?
Warwick.
Just Have you talked to Warwick?
Not lately. He's got upcoming operation, but I'm not sure when. He's not sure either. But that's for the brain tumor that started to grow again.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, somebody had, and I wrote this name down last week. Was it Nancy Rory? Does anybody remember that? Nancy Rory? Was that somebody that just sent me a text last week, a week before last? I've got her name on here, and I just wrote it on the paper. So I'm thinking that might have been somebody that put her name on there. And then also on our blessed memory tonight is John Moore. John Moore. Would you help us pray tonight? Hear our voice, Adonai, our God, Father of mercy. Have compassion on us and accept our prayers with compassion and favor. For we know that you are a God who hears prayers and supplications. You are our King. Do not send us away empty-handed. Favor us and answer us and listen to our prayers. Amen. All right, Terry, I'm going to put you on speaker view. And I'm going to back off, and I got a couple more things to do over here computer wise to make this flow good tonight. So I'm going to put you on speaker view and back right off. Okay.
All right. Greetings, everyone. And again, thank you for everyone coming into our Outreach Noah class. We really do appreciate everyone's contacting us and your comments and stuff that Scotty gets, so we can have some really good discussions. I know he collects the questions, and from time to time we'll put some of them together and do a Q&A, which we hadn't done in a while. So I'll try to get together with Scotty and see what we've got lined up right there, and then maybe here in a couple of weeks we'll take a little bit of a break and do a Q&A session that we haven't done in a while, because those are kind of fun. And it's a way that you all get to help participate in the class as well. And we'll take your questions and look into them and bring our answers. If we don't know the answer, we know enough people on about 2 or 3 different continents that we can ask. That's the beauty of the internet today, and the connections that we have is not only here in America, but we've got connections in Canada and Israel and New Zealand and everywhere else that we can draw from a lot of knowledge around the globe. Excuse my throat tonight, but I've had a real rough sinus ordeal over the weekend, and it seems to don't want to leave. And so it makes my throat a little bit dry from time to time. But tonight we're going to continue on. Like I said, the class before, I didn't want to continue that night into the second day. We're going to be covering the second day, God willing, tonight, verses Genesis chapter 1, verses 6 through 8. We're going to be looking at the Hebrew word here is rakia, which is translated firmament. We're going to look at some interesting information from the Hebrew and from the Torah sages of Israel, from their wise knowledge of studying these things for nearly 3,400 years since it was given to them at Mount Sinai. Tonight, again, my main source is my ArtScroll Tanakh series, Bereshit or Genesis, that we're going to be using to learn from. And I'm just going to read, since we've got a few verses together here, I'm going to read these together tonight, and then we're going to come back and go through them. In verse 6 of chapter 1, and it says, God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it separate between water and water. So God made the firmament and separated between the waters which were beneath the firmament and the waters which was above the firmament. And it was so. And God called to the firmament heaven. And there was evening, and then there was morning, a second day. And this day, and the Bible, and the way it lines up with the Roman calendar, this is what we call Monday. We're going to learn some interesting stuff about that as well. But this second day is Monday on our calendar. And it says, creation of the firmament. Let there be a firmament or expanse, i.e., let the expanse, the firmament or the heaven, solidify. Although the heavens were created on the first day, they were still in a state of flux, solidifying on the second day at God's command. Literally, rebuke. Yahai Rakia. Let there be a firmament. The usual translation of Rakia is firmament. The expanse of the heavens. Even Rashi says it derives from another word that says make firm or solidify. The other Torah teachers teach as well that Rakia, the root of which is related to that of they hammered. You'll find a form of the word Rakia in Exodus chapter 39:3, where it is used and is translated as spread out. Hammered out. And in Isaiah 42:5, it is the same word is used and is translated as spread out. So hammered out and spread out are two other translations of this word and how it was used within the context it was being used in. Rabbi Hirsch explains that if it is derived from Raki, extending or stretching, then the word firmament could be characterized as the gaseous expansion of the air, in contrast to the denser water of the earth. The atmosphere, which fills the space between the waters below and above, the vapor of the lower waters rise to its upper stratum, where it forms into clouds. And then it dispenses as rain. The atmosphere thus rests on the water upon the earth and bears the water of clouds. He goes on and says that this is the only secondary meaning of this word. It has rather the meaning of a beating thin, just like it in Exodus where it says hammered out, to beat thin, to hammer out, which is done in the case of metals. Accordingly, Rakia refers to the lower surface of the heaven, which has the appearance of a dome. As a matter of fact, in Rabbi Hirsch's teachings on this passage, instead of the word firmament, he uses the word vault to represent this dome type appearance that the firmament has. But he says, however, the dome is merely an optical illusion. Malbim, another Torah scholar, says, and he explains it, that the heavenly bodies, as we now understand them, are suspended in the air, and there is no such thing as a physical dome girding the earth. The Rakia is therefore to be understood as referring to the area of the clouds. The vaporous mist ascends until that area where it becomes water in the form of rain and returns back to the earth. The interpretation. Now, if I'm going too fast, God, if someone needs me to go back and go over something, just let me know. The interpretation of this then, once this is all understood, that the word that is translated as firmament can be understood as an expanse. It can be understood as being hammered out and spread out. So the Torah teacher says an interpretation of this then could be as, let the sky, which was created on the first day, be stretched forth amidst the waters which engulf the earth. In the midst of the waters, i.e., the exact center, the separation between the upper waters and the firmament being equal to the separation between the firmament and the waters on the earth. Thus we learn that the upper waters remain suspended by divine edict. That this expanse that is above the earth, that rests upon the waters, it remains in its place by divine edict. And the passage continues and says, let it separate, or let it serve as a means of separating between water and water, the water which is below and the water which is above. The Targum Yonasan elaborates upon the following verse, leaving half above and half below. That's how he describes it. You have half the water above, half the water below. It is noted in the Hebrew, let it separate, is literally means let it be a divider. Let it be a divider. And it denotes that this division is to be permanent. Remember, this is by divine edict, it remains, and it is to be permanent. And another Torah scholar stresses on this translation is that the divider or the separation must, in this case, be translated as a verb, with the firmament, the implied subject, and not as a noun, as erred in other translations. As some says, and let there be a separation, which a separation would be a noun and not a verb. But in the use of this word, the rakia, it is that it is separated, and it's separated between the waters. It's a verb. It's an action and not a noun. And so, and God said, he made the firmament. And this was interesting because of the word made. He says, i.e., he set it in its ordained position. When this particular word that is translated as made is used, it says, thus the term that's translated as made always means putting an object into its ultimate condition. God completed the expansion. He let it proceed to a certain state, and there he stopped further expansion. And so anytime we see this word, especially in the creation week, when we see him say, like here we see it with the firmament, he has ordained a specific position. And when this word is used, because like I said, when we looked at the very first sentence, the word create is bara. Anytime we see the word bara in Hebrew, it means something that has come from nothing. From that point on, we see there's a couple of words that, like, one is formed. and the other is made. And when we see this word made used in unison with an object of creation, that means that object has been completed and put in its specific place in creation. And it's going to be that way for eternity. It's not going to change. He's made it, he's finished it, and it's going to stay just like that. And that's what he's talking about here in the Hebrew when we're talking about the firmament. When God made the firmament, he set it in its place, and he brought it to its completion in its design and its purpose. Then he goes, and between the waters which were above the firmament. The verse does not say on or directly upon, but it says above the firmament, because the waters above the firmament are suspended in midair. Me'am Loez states that though the water above the firmament is also of a spiritual nature, we are nevertheless obliged to believe that there is indeed water there, as King David says in Psalms 148, verse 4, praise him, heavens of heavens, and you waters that are above the heavens. And we're going to see that here a little bit more as we get closer toward the end of the passage. Ibn Ezra notes that the difference between waters and waters, without the divine article, the hey, or the word, what we would translate as the, and without repeating the word between before each noun, as used in the previous verse, between the waters and between the waters. Repeating the word between each time as used in this verse, Malbim again explains that the former denotes a barrier between two similar substances. The water above possibly being the same water as below. Here the division was made not only in space, but also in kind. And so it's interesting as we grow further in the creation week, we start seeing this pop up, that God begins to separate kinds. And here we're starting to see right here, as Malding says, that there was a division that was made not only in space, but in kind. The water below was literally a liquid, while the water above was a vapor. Both are water, but both are also of a kind of its own. And we see God do that in humanity. And I'll just share a little bit. In humanity, we have male and female. God took and he made male and female, and he separated them as kinds, each one with their own duty and purpose on the earth. Then God also took from mankind and he made Israel a priestly nation, gave them a duty, and then the nations, also human, gave them a duty, just like the vapor above and the water, the liquid below. Both are water, but they're in two different places. They're two different kinds, even though they're the same substances. But God divided them and gave each one a purpose and a duty. And we see this through the creation week with how God does that with not only creation, but also with mankind. And then God said, and it was so. Or as Hirsch puts it, and so it became. I.e., the state of the expanse became firmly established. There was to be no further development of the rakia, or the firmament, which had formed between the waters. Again, Ebenezer says that this phrase should be connected to the introductory to the next verse and be rendered, when it was so, then God called to the firmament heaven. It says, for the verse has already explicitly said, and God made as a fate. Why must it be repeated? And it was so. The phrase implies absolute perpetuity and eternity in an unchanging state from the day of its creation. The firmament has not changed since the day of its creation, of the second day of creation. Nevertheless, it must be understood that God renews the creation daily. Otherwise, it would not continue to exist. Hence, there is no self-sustaining permanence in creation. When we speak of the permanence of the universe, we mean that He, God, His will is that the creation be renewed constantly. Arachazim explains that this is the proper place for the phrase because this verse does not merely elaborate on the act mentioned in the previous verse. It is vital and it is a very important part of it, for it implies that He made a wider barrier between two previously connected levels of water. Not merely a separation, but a distant division. The Ramban even notes, and it was as so, it was written, and He made to indicate that the making of the firmament as a division between the upper and the lower waters would remain permanent and eternal. I don't skip anything here. And God called to the firmament heaven, and God called to the firmament heaven, similar to when we talked about day and night. God called to them. When He called to them, He was placing them and giving each one a duty and a certain place within creation. So now He's calling to the firmament heaven. Heaven, i.e., a compound of two words. The Hebrew word heaven is shemayim. It is shah and mayim, which can be translated in and of it by themselves as two separate words as carry water. Shemayim, the waters are there. Aish v'mayim, fire and water, which He mixed together and from which He made heaven. Shemayim, at the end of verse 1, he talks about, because we read that at the end of verse 1, Shemayim. And he says, and He called to, that we read in verse 5. According to the Torah teacher Ramban, by this name, which is composite of its components and parts, He revealed the mystery of creation. The composite form of Shem and Mayim. Shem in the Hebrew is the Shem Meme, or some people pronounce it as Shem, but it has a long A sound. Actually, it's the vowel points is a long A. Shame. It's not shame like shaming, but it's the Hebrew word. It's the Hebrew word for name. And so the new name of the water is heaven. Heaven is the name given to the waters when they assumed their new form. The new form of the waters above was given the name heaven or Shemayim. However, Scripture relates nothing with the specific concerning of the creation, just as it did mention the creation of the angels and other incorporeal beings. It only mentions in general terms that the heaven was created and that on the second day the firmament should separate the waters and assume the name Shemayim. The firmament assumes the name as Shemayim or heaven. This is not the heavens mentioned in the first verse, in verse 1. For those heavens encompass all extraterrestrial spiritual aspects of creation. And I've heard, rabbis teach on that. And when he created the heavens and the earth, it's a composite of everything that's on the earth and a composite of everything that's in the heavens. Just as God made the light day, is in verse 5, therefore it assigned it its mission, which we covered a couple weeks ago. So did he with the Rakia, heaven, thereby giving it a meaning for the earth. Though Shemayim designates the whole extraterrestrial universe surrounding the earth in space, just as Yom, or the word day, Yom is the Hebrew word for day, designates in general, but more specifically, the part of the day that the light does its functions. Rakia thus designates the real heaven, because though it comes, through it comes everything. Through this heaven comes everything. And I thought this was interesting. The earth receives from the heights of the heavens. Even light does not come directly and purely to the earth, but only through the Rakia, where it is refracted and filtered to be prepared and made ready for its work. So when the light comes into the earth, it's got to go through the heaven, through the firmament, and it has to be filtered and refracted so it can do its work upon the earth. Thus, it is the container and the transmitter of all gifts and forces of the extraterrestrial world. The designation of the firmament now means from this point in the atmosphere, the Rakia begins the heavenly realm. It begins the heavenly realm. Where human existence is not possible. It's called the means that he instilled it with the nature that it should be heaven, and it's not fit for earthlings. Psalms 115:16 states that the heavens are the heavens of Hashem, or of God, but he has given the earth to the children of man. And according to the Rashbam, the intent of this verse is that, i.e., the Rakia, the firmament, henceforth be called Shemayim, heaven, throughout the Torah. The rest of the instructions that God would give Moses to give to Israel. And there was and there was evening, and there was morning a second day. Although the work of the second day was not sufficiently complete to describe it as kitov, that it was good. Remember at the end of the first day, and God says, and it was good. And we see at the end of the third day, he says, and it was good twice. We're going to see that. And then at the end of every day, he says it is good except for the second day. Nevertheless, since the act of separating The upper from the lower waters was finished, giving the appearance of completion. The Torah culminates the day's activity like any other day in the summation. And there was evening and there was morning. And it was a second day. Many of my Jewish friends and teachers explained something to me years ago, and I found this very interesting, and I share this when I can with people. How many people do not like Mondays? Does not Mondays always seem something just goes berserk sometimes on that day? I mean, we all like, it's another Monday. We don't like Monday. There's a spiritual reason why Mondays, or the second day of the week, seems to have a little bit more difficulty than the rest of the week. And it's become known. Monday is, I mean, there's songs written about Monday. And the reason why is because at the end of this day, he does not say ki tov. It was good. But on the third day, he says it was good twice, which we'll see that when we get to that next. He didn't say that this day was bad, but when it was finished, he didn't say it was good. And my teachers has told me the reason why is because the day is a day of division. He divided the water below and the water above. And even though this division was a part of the work of creation to make what the waters below is to be and what the waters of the above in the heavens is to be, even though it was part of creating specific aspects of creation, division can be seen as like chaos, and chaos was going on. And even though it was done to do something on purpose that God did for the work of creation, division is not really seen as a good thing in this way, because there was a chaos. There was a chaos that was going on, but as the waters below and the waters above began to separate and all that, and therefore it's considered a day of division. And therefore, at the end of the day, God didn't say it was good, but he waited till everything was completely finished with the firmaments and the waters. And on day 3, then he says it's good twice. But he doesn't designate the second day as ki tov, because it's a day of division. And I've always thought that was interesting. So that's why Mondays has a tendency to be divisive, because it is a day that division went on the earth for the purpose of creation, but it was still division. And there's even a spiritual aspect to division. Though it was meant for good, division causes a strife. And therefore we have the strife of Mondays, because it is the day of division of the work of creation. Go ahead, Scotty.
I'm hitting all my buttons to get over here. So
we left. We're gone by.
Okay. Let me put us back on gallery view here. So Veronica's got a good question over here, and you're probably going to cover it soon, but it is a great question. Let me see if I can find it. Where and when does air come into play?
It came into play in the dividing of the waters. When God divided the waters, as we read, I think the Malbim actually explained, I think it was the Malbim or the Ramban explained it here. When he divided the waters and he separated them according to their, even though you have a water above and a water below, the water below was liquid, the water above was gaseous, was vapor. And so that became the air. That became the air or the sky. Even some of the Torah scholars will translate firmament as sky when it's discussing this water above. And then so that's where the air comes in this point, because he separated the waters. And when he separated the waters, the one becomes vaporous and the other stays liquid, and the vaporous becomes our atmosphere.
Okay.
Hello,
and we walk
everyone.
in that.
Sorry, this is just a microphone check. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
So, okay. And I guess you'll cover that more as we go on in. I'm sure we'll have some questions as we go on in. Yeah.
The basis of the air and all that was designed and built in during the separations.
I've got a sort of question.
Yes.
If you don't mind me asking. It's sort of a wild card question. What came first, the chicken or the egg?
What came first, chicken egg? I know you asked the creator on that one.
I give you a little bit. I apologize. That was a little off topic. Apologies. All
right. We probably might find that out when we get into the days that discuss that. But no, the deal with the air, Veronica, is kind of covered here when he separated separated the waters, because the liquid water you and I can't live in. And so he didn't bring, the animals nor the trees nor anything about until after the division of the firmament, and the firmament part became gaseous and became our atmosphere. And then there's a permanent eternal divide between the water and the atmosphere that's there. I mean, we can't see it, but there is a divide where one stops and the other one begins. And that where that divides becomes our atmosphere in which we live. And then there's the other divisions of that, the sages talk about, that's above the heavens, that are above the firmament, that's above the earth.
Well said, Terry. Well said. Sorry, did I interrupt there? Apologies if I interrupted.
No. Go ahead, Scotty.
No, that's good. That's good. I'd say we'll cover those more as we go on in. So, nope, that's good. That's good. I don't have any emails or questions about where we're at so far.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to go through this second day. I did it probably a little bit, deeper. I mean, probably didn't have to cover it that deep, but I wanted to bring about, because we could understand this creation of the second day and the division that was there also ties into the spirituality of why Mondays tends to be crazy. And it's because the spiritual aspect and the physical aspect, that it was a day of division.
Okay.
And next class we'll get into the third day. I'll get that studied out between here and the next.
I'm quite new here, so how does the schedule work with the classes? So
Wednesday nights.
At same time.
8 p.m. Eastern.
All right. Perfect. Cheers.
We're going through the book of Genesis.
Yeah, I figured, sort of, based on the conversation.
All right. Well, Terry, short class tonight.
Thank you, guys.
I've gone over this 2 or 3 times this week, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I can get all this. I didn't want it to seem like I went fast. I knew I had a lot to cover.
No, it was amazing, Terry, honestly.
I would like to cover, if possible, God willing, each day. Some of these are going to cover more than one class, but I felt that the second day I could cover in one class, and I was glad I was able to get that done.
Okay, good deal. Well, I'm going to bring us to a close, Terry, and we'll go from there. So, everybody, we thank you so much for joining in with us. Those of you who Power Faith Radio, we thank you so. Excuse me.
You bold. I don't know if you know this, mate. You bold, man.
He's saying you're bald. Like your head. That's so irrelevant, Simon.
So I'm just going ahead and remove you guys. Thank you so much for
Thank you, Daddy, Baldy.
coming in. Okay, we'll have to watch those from now on. Let's see. Is everybody else in here we know? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring us to a close, Terry. And so we appreciate everybody that's come in tonight. And thank you so much for those of you listening to Power Faith Radio, those of you listening through the YouTube channel, and those of you that have joined us through our Facebook page. We will return next week, good Lord willing, 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. See you.